this is the Global Digest think tank group. Introduce to our audience where you right now and what is your expertise so they can know you more. Please.
Sure. So at first, I'm a visual art instructor for my pupils in France. And in 2017, they asked me to look into UFOs, so unidentified flying objects. Starting then, I looked for information. I became a journalist for The Brief, a high-tech news platform that you can find very easily that covers UAPs, as UFOs are now called UAPs. And then I started covering the subject in France for another platform that is called UAP Check. It is looking to offer the most reliable information we can on that subject.
Are you any related to European space or any space-related organizations?
I cover ESA news and defense news related to space, but I'm not involved with them. I'm not engaged by them.
But you know a lot of information.
Yes, I cover the information for my audience.
How's that advantage and disadvantage between American and European space program? Probably NASA and ESA, right? European space.
Yes, so there is a lot of overlapping. So there is a lot of sharing projects and resources between ESA and NASA. The main difference is that ESA is really designed for civilian research programs, while NASA can be hired or hijacked by the US government to also work on military operations. So that's the main difference we have between the two. And for example, the main NASA project right now is to reach out to the moon and land on the moon again. China is to build a large space station in orbit. And for the ESA, the main goal is to clean the lower orbit of debris so other countries can access space too.
See, recently, India also launched
yes,
satellite to the moon. So I think a lot of countries are going into moon.
Yes.
Well, how do you think? What is the main interesting in moon? For geopolitical reason or some natural resources or any other things?
That's a very good question. So what's rekindled the interest for space exploration was twofold. So first, China really wanted to go to space. And there was an ego problem for the United States that didn't want to have their last exhibits of force overcome by the Chinese. So they had to rekindle their space program, which was a very tough problem for them because they fired all the engineers back in the day because they killed their own space program. So they had to relearn old technologies to go back to the moon again, which is quite ironic. But the other part is recent studies that have been done, that have been on the mapping of the moon, and some very interesting minerals that have been found on the surface of the moon. So one of them is helium-3, He3, and it could be used as a fuel source for fusion reactors. So there is also a lot of economic interest of having a base on the moon.
See, so is there probably they will import natural resource from moon is probably in the future?
In the far future, I would say. It's quite a stepping stone. So it's a future we have to go through. So to explore further out into our own solar system and in space, it would be much easier for us to have a base on the moon where the gravity is much lower, so we can propel vessels much more easier than we can do from Earth. So it will be in the far future, but we have to go through that step at one point.
So who is now the main influencer in moon? which country? US or China or Russia or Europe?
Oh, that's a great question, because they are very discreet about their own projects. I would say China is ahead, followed closely by the United States. And then you have the Indian space program, the Israeli space program, that are close together. They are also aiming for the moon. And then you have the European, but in Europe, we are really based on civilian research. So we don't need to have we don't have an economic interest in having a scientific base on the moon. It's quite contradictory. We can do a lot more science in lower Earth orbits. That's why we have a lot of plans for building and cleaning up that space to offer access to space to other nations.
I mean, US and Russia, they used to be the beginner to reach in moon. Why the US and Russia become behind?
Mm-hmm. I would say that there was a mischaracterization of the ambition of China. Everybody thought that China wanted to remain independent and to be its own empire, and nobody looked for what the will of the Communist Party was. And there is a very strong expansion will from China towards space. So I think that's the main fuel of the situation, because due to that, you have other countries that want to have their share of the cake too, and are rekindling their space program to counter the ambition of China in space.
See, so now they are digging resources from moon. Probably in the future, they can dig resources from other planets. Now, a lot of concentration in Mars, and probably one by one. How do you see any, competition for business in, other planets?
No, that's very true. I think there is a whole side of industry that needs to be developed in orbit, because inside space you can develop new types of technology that aren't available on Earth. And you can, if you can gather resources in low Earth orbit, you can create entire space cities that are autonomous and can structure themselves to host human beings inside of them. So once we reach that level of industry and industrial awareness of the interest of space, we will see another industrial revolution with access to new types of compounds and entire fields of resources that are for now unexploited.
So it will be interesting in the future, and it's also probably risky galaxy war, or solar planet wars or something like that. So in terms of I don't know, France is part of ESA, or France has, I mean, a leading role in ESA, or how French role in space?
Yes. France is very involved inside the ESA, and we have our own French space program. So we are very akin to space.
So, I mean, you have French or ESA has a spaceport or rocket or anything you develop?
So we have France has its own spaceport that is in French Guiana, next to Brazil, and we have our bridge to space at that point, and it is given to the ESA too. But the ESA can also make launch from the United States and from Russia. It's more a research alliance about space, so they are not limited to European space sites.
Yeah. By the way, in Europe, how many countries has capacity for launch, space program. I mean, spaceport or rocket, or how many countries? French and who else? I think most are not many, I guess.
Specifically for space launch of human beings, we are the only one, but it's not how that works. So the idea of the ESA was to use French access to space and give it to the other European Union members. So by the ESA, every European country can have access to space by joining the program themselves. So that was the idea.
So all European countries agreed together to develop space program, and
yes,
they also contributed financially. Every country.
Mm-hmm. Yes, ESA is funded by the European Union.
So Europe should have a lot of money. You should be far advanced than any other space program. Why? It seems, I mean, military purpose, you are absolutely behind, but you are more dealing with the education purpose, scientific purpose, right?
We don't have that much money. We are behind NASA and the Chinese Space Agency, and we need to share it between the different countries. So it's not like all the budgets goes for French missions. It's shared between all participants to the program. So that's why we don't have the amount of political ambition inside our program, because you have all the countries that are represented in. So it's consensual missions on scientific research that are promoted by the ESA.
So ESA and NASA are strongly collaborated and cooperated, right? What about with Russia and China? You have any? Is there international agreement? Do we have an international norm and standard agreement about space program?
There are agreements specifically. It's sort of similar because you have both sides. So we have agreements between spacefaring nations to basically have rules of law in space. The problem is that with recent developments in weaponry, we had both Russia and China shooting down satellites in orbit and created vast array of debris fields that are a great danger to human endeavors in space, and that were more or less forbidden by the law that were agreed upon back in the day at the beginning of space exploration. So right now we have a huge problem about what is defined as, for example, a weapon system in space. One of the reasons we are using ICBMs to carry nuclear weapons is because they don't do a full orbit around the Earth, so they are not considered weapons in space. They just go through space, so it's not illegal weapons. But right now, with the increase of conflicts between Russia, China, and US assets in space, there is a huge question of who holds what in space.
So it seems, as you mentioned, China is a lot of influence in moon, and also Russia is also very, technologically advanced in space. How European and American can make further advance, then I think they are more challenger and competitor for Europe and NASA, America, right? How is risky and how's challenges for those American and European? Because if any, they use space program for military advantage. It's risky, isn't it?
Yes, it's a good point. There is an increase both in tensions between the countries on Earth and in space. And China just released its space plan for the next decades to come, and it has huge ambitions for the solar system. So there is the realization in the United States and Europe that we need to act, otherwise China will try to claim everything for itself. And even if that isn't entirely true, if you're reading what is published by the Chinese Communist Party, the perception, the way it's felt in the United States is that it will be a considerable threat afterwards. You need to remember that back in the day, in the Cold War, there was already the question of putting weapons in space, and even establishing military base on the moon able to shoot down on Earth military targets. So it's a question that is rekindling a new type of Cold War in space right now.
There is also, we can say, Cold War in space, right? Right now. It's
exactly.
I see. So connection to, international space, and we also are moving to the different planet and, different area. So many people are arguing and very confused about UFO. It's real exists or isn't just for competition between those big competitor countries for military secret or other things. How can you say about UFO?
Oh, that's a very good question, and it's a very true question. There is a subset of unidentified flying objects that are military prototypes of new types of technologies that are being tested on the field and witnessed by observers. They don't identify it as a military aircraft and record it as a UFO. That's why you need inside countries to have a half military, half civilian group able to gather that witness reporting collection database and then compare it to their own secret military prototypes and sort out what the witness saw. So the governmental groups is able to give really reliable information about what is seen by the witness, because he is able to do that. When you have civilian groups that are investigating a case, they don't have access to military prototypes, and they don't know what are the current military missions that are going on near the witness position. So they can't do that. So inside civilian research organization about UFOs, you always have that doubt about the information that is given. So what we did in France is to create our own half public, half military group that is able to request from the army information to know if a particular sighting was really anomalous or if it was the test of a military prototype. So right now, that's the best of what we can do.
So I don't know, can you verify that the reality of UFO, or it's not, nobody yet able to verify?
Oh no, we know it exists. It's not a doubt. It was discovered in 1978, the first year of activity of the French public UFO program. The first investigation was, is there really something? It's just hallucinations or weather phenomena, or is it something really anomalous, real? And after 1 year of study, the first analysis came out, and it was yes. So it's a rare phenomena. So most of the time, people see conventional things that they misidentify as UFO, but in very specific cases, there is something very real, very anomalous, and we have 10 witnesses that are all saying the same thing. We have radar bases, military bases that are picking up signals from the radar system. And we have fighter aircraft that are trying to intercept it. So you don't have doubts at that level of information. And they all say the same thing. It was there, it was real, it was anomalous. So we are sure that there is a very small subset of UFOs that are truly real and truly anomalous.
So can we say there are also military secret object, or also there is a real alien came to the earth and
Alien. Okay.
they came to
so that's the next question. What is the origin of the anomalous thing that we picked up on the radar? The problem we have now is that according to David Grush, that is an intelligence officer that just gave his testimony, sworn testimony under oath to the US Congress, some of these objects are from non-human origin, so they haven't been made by us. We don't know where they came from, and some of these crafts have pilots inside of them that are non-human too. So we can't say extraterrestrial based on David Grush's testimony. It wouldn't be accurate, but we can say based on his testimony that it's non-human pilots.
So probably it can be alien or something from other planets came to the earth. And also there are also many military experiment objects. So we all are mixed up, right? So
exactly.
both are happening. Both are
yes.
happening, but we don't know much detail about alien came to the earth, and they are not significant, but it is a clue. It is probably there is a non-human being, probably alien. So in the future, probably we can have politics in the solar system or galaxy war, or war with different planets. Or is there any competition maybe happen in the future?
That's a very huge question, because and it's a question that was asked to David Grush in an interview, is that if these objects are driven by other species than us, do we try to make contact with them? And as far as we can say, historically, it was always a conflict situation. So we try to shoot them down when we encounter them. So in terms of diplomacy, we aren't there yet to talk to them, as every time they showed up, we tried to shoot them down.
And was, the most significant encounter with the alien from other planets? And is there any possible chance for communication with alien and contact with them, so we can start diplomacy? When was the most significant, do you see?
I think so. It won't be a proper communication example. The most significant case would be the Nimitz incident. So it happened in 2004, and you have 4 very well-trained Navy pilots, US Navy pilots, that witness an anomalous craft for 5 minutes. They all swear the same thing. That object is then followed by another fighter aircraft that take pictures of it and take a video from it. So we have video evidence that is publicly available from that object. And from all the witnesses we had, because there was a whole nuclear Navy carrier group that was around it and that was recording the craft with E-2 Hawkeye in the sky, and the Princeton, which is a destroyer fitted with last generation radar system. we have all that data that has been recovered by the US Army. So we are sure that it happened because we have all the witnesses. We don't have access to the data because it's classified, and there are several efforts inside the US legal system to make that data available. But right now, that is the best case we have due to the quality of witness and the amount of witnesses we have on the subject. Regarding communication, that wouldn't be that obvious. We have two types of communication. So when you are flying an aircraft and you can't talk by radio to another aircraft, you can communicate by making movements. So when the fighter aircraft tried to intercept the object that witnessed, the object mirrored their movements. So it meant that the object knew the aircraft were coming towards it to intercept it, and were mimicking the aircraft. So it's a type of communication because it shows he understood what we were doing and reproduced it in itself. When the fighter aircraft of David Ferrer tried to then cut the trajectory and go through and directly towards the anomalous craft, the craft just bolted out at extreme speed. So then again, it's a type of communication because it shows he understood an intent of aggression from outside and then bolted away. The other types of communication we have comes from close encounters witness that are saying that they encountered pilots of these crafts. The problem we have is that when you take all the amount of information from these close encounters, they can't all be true. They are contradictory to themselves when you compare witness reports to witness reports. So either we can't understand what they are saying, or either they are lying to us when we encounter them on the ground.
So it's difficult for communication with alien, and there is not significant we have done communication with them. And also you mentioned those evidence are not human object. It's probably alien from other planet. You don't think it will be done by Russia or China?
It could be. For example, we have a report from a fighter. I think he was either US Navy or Air Force. He explained that one of the problems they had is that China was building drones that were looking like UFOs because they knew that pilots didn't want to report UFOs to military headquarters. So they disguised their observational drones inside a UFO appearance-like to evade reporting the position of the aircraft when they were intercepting by fighter aircraft. So you have a next level of dissimulation when you disguise your drone inside the appearance of a UFO.
So it seems there should be more cooperation between different countries, more than NASA and ESA. Also, I guess you should cooperate with other countries.
There is cooperation between all spacefaring nations for the simple example that it's just too risky to not communicate what you are doing when you are launching objects at 40,000 kilometers in space. So there is constant stream of information, even between rival nations, just due to the amount of risk there is to have that amount of crafts in orbit of Earth. And as far as I'm aware, there is open hands on each part for talks about cooperation regarding space exploration.
Thank you very much for today, your space knowledge sharing.